Good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me. It is wonderful to see you all, and I know we've got probably about 25 people who are live streaming from all around the country as well. So whether you're physically present with us or joining via live stream, welcome. This is a really exciting event because it's a first real major in-person event for the Gephardt Institute in nearly 2 years at this point, and masks and all, it's just wonderful to be in person together. My name is Stephanie Kurtzman, and I'm honored to lead the Gephardt Institute for Civic and Community Engagement at Washington University in St. Louis. We're gathered here this evening to share in the celebration of 22 Washington University students who served as Arts as Civic Engagement Resident Fellows, Beuerlein Fellows, and Goldman Fellows, and in celebration of the civic and community organizations that not only hosted each student, but who provide essential services, programming, engagement, and care for our St. Louis community every day. The collective impact of our fellows and their partner organizations is inspiring, and we're proud to share their stories with you tonight. I'd like to first thank our host for this evening, the Center of Creative Arts. COCA is not only a national leader in innovative arts education and a neighbor to Washington University, but also served as host to Sophie DiVincenti, one of the Arts of Civic Engagement resident fellows we celebrate tonight. At the Gephardt Institute for Civic and Community Engagement, we seek to foster a vibrant culture of civic engagement throughout Washington University with a vision of civic health in St. Louis and around the world. The Gephardt Institute's mission spans academic and co-curricular life and equips students with the capacity and the commitment for lifelong civic engagement with the complex and deep-seated issues and challenges of our time. In other words, I believe that we can have hope for our collective future because we have the opportunity to shape the minds and hearts of our young people, many of whom are here tonight, who will become the civic leaders and the change agents we need in our region, in our country, and the world. In the fellowship programs that gather us here this evening, our model is simple. Students have the opportunity to immerse themselves in St. Louis, a region we know is rich with cultural assets, vibrant communities, and a complex past and present, and apply their talents to effect positive change in St. Louis. Through Arts of Civic Engagement, resident fellows focus on the role of the arts in advancing civic engagement and social change. In this competitive 5-month fellowship program, students contribute substantially to the missions of their partner organizations and engage in an experiential curriculum to examine the intersection of the arts and civic engagement. Through the Beuerlein Fellows program, formed in partnership with the Alzheimer's Association Greater Missouri Chapter, fellows focused on supporting families who are disproportionately affected by Alzheimer's and all other dementia by improving risk reduction, advancing science specific to diverse communities, and more. And finally, the Goldman Fellows program is our longest-standing program and has engaged nearly 150 fellows since 2008. Goldman Fellows contribute substantially to St. Louis through full-time nonprofit internships and engage in an experiential curriculum to understand St. Louis's culture, history, politics, challenges, and vision for the future. Each fellowship program shares 4 common goals and formats. First, fellowships are centered on internships with local nonprofit organizations and civic institutions and are driven by the mission and priorities of each organization. Students contribute 300 to 400 hours over the course of the program. Second, students, community partners, and the Gephardt Institute collaborate to create mutually beneficial goals and project plans for each fellow. Third, each fellow also engages with their cohort as they immerse themselves in St. Louis learning and engagement, establishing relationships and engaging in dialogue across academic disciplines and civic passions. And fourth, Each fellow is provided a $5,000 stipend in lieu of summer earnings and to help offset the cost of living in St. Louis over the summer to ensure that this unique opportunity is accessible to all students. These stipends are made possible through the generous gifts of Gephardt Institute supporters. In particular, I'd like to recognize the Joyce and Irving Goldman Foundation, Terry and Sally Schnook, and together to joining us tonight, John Beuerlein and his wife, Crystal. To everyone gathered with us this evening, this is a night for celebration. For our students, their families, and as I like to say, their fan clubs, this is the culmination of a summer of learning, impact, and growing as civic leaders. For our community partners, many of whom have hosted fellows multiple times over the years, this is a celebration of the power of partnerships to advance your missions and foster a thriving St. Louis community. And for the friends and supporters of our St. Louis Summer Fellowships, your gifts, your guidance, and your support have allowed for these programs to develop, to innovate, and to flourish to most effectively advance community needs and student learning. Everyone is deserving of a round of applause. And now, I'm pleased to turn our attention to the students and community partners who invested their time and talents in our Summer 2021 fellowships, beginning with the Goldman Fellows program, followed by Arts of Civic Engagement, and concluding with the Beuerlein Fellows program. We will view a brief video about each program through the voices of our students and community partners. We will then welcome representatives of each cohort to the podium to share more insights about their experiences. Our program will close with words from poet, storyteller, and St. Louis native Shiraz Gorman. Thank you once again for joining us this evening. On behalf of the Gephardt Institute and Washington University, as we probably should say at COCA, enjoy the show.
This summer, I worked for the St. Louis Initiative.
This summer, I interned at Pathways to Independence.
I interned with Creative Reaction Lab.
I was fortunate to volunteer or intern with the Spot.
I worked with CG Immigration, and it's an immigration law firm located on Cherokee Street.
I oversaw 2 programs, and I led youth events.
One of the projects I got to work on with the Spot was a data analysis project, and I was looking at data from patients and clients at the Spot who had been using PrEP for HIV prevention, and I got to see this analysis of data to see clients that followed through with this PrEP regimen, like getting started on the medication, following through after 3 or 6 months. And that experience of working with data and using data to inform health practices and policies is something that I'm really interested in doing in the future. So I'm really glad that I got that experience this summer to kind of kickstart my passion and interest for doing that.
So I think the biggest thing is that I've wanted to go into occupational therapy for the past few years, but a lot of it's been theoretical, like through studies and just talking to people. I hadn't really had any shadowing experience with occupational therapy or anything like that. And Pathways was the first opportunity I had not only to work with the populations that I hope to work with in the future, but also kind of transition what I thought occupational therapy was and could be. So usually I imagine myself in a hospital setting, but after this summer, I definitely want to be more involved in the community and have a more community-based setting.
The Goldman program allowed us to have one of their 14 fantastic interns this summer and was fully funded by Gephardt, which meant so much to us as a small nonprofit.
This internship and after my summer experience, it gave me more direction, I want to say. Now I more so know what I want to do moving forward, and it informed what I need to do to get to the point that I want to go.
I just learned a ton, and I'm so appreciative for how much I learned and how much mentorship I got.
It was enhancing almost to work with Paola because we were able to teach them a little bit, but also they were able to bring a lot of their skills to us, which was extremely helpful and necessary for us to do what we do.
Ronelle did so much more than just shadow us at her internship. She was out in the field with us every day, working directly with participants and creating and implementing some new programming that came directly from her unique perspective.
From the beginning, it was always about like what I think, my opinions, how I think Pathways can improve, things that Pathways thinks that I can improve on as I'm working through this summer.
And I think that it makes a really big difference when an intern can be supported not only emotionally and physically, but monetarily as well. I just think that that is something that not a lot of people get. And I loved the check-ins that we did as well with the Institute. I think that was really helpful. So it felt extremely supportive. And I think that that's really necessary for an intern to do the work that they do, especially for a grassroots organization like Squish.
My favorite part of Goldman Fellows as a whole was the cohort experience. Outside of my internship with the Spot, I loved getting to know different people at WashU that I don't think I would have met outside of this program, and really getting to see their experiences at their internships and how that influenced what their future directions would be and having those conversations together was probably the most meaningful part.
Every opportunity to engage, especially outside of WashU, is always really informative. To know the city that you're in, I've really got to know St. Louis better and know the people here, and I always appreciate that. Now I have friends here who don't go to WashU, which is nice to say, and it makes me feel like I'm actually involved in the community that I'm living in.
If I had to say my experience in one word, it would be transformative.
In one word, it would be insightful.
Encouraging.
Enriching.
If I could describe my summer experience in one word, it would be opportunity.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. My name is Blake Como, and I had the amazing privilege to go through the Goldman Fellows program here this summer. To begin, I just want to say thank you so much to both Nicole and King Sung for being amazing facilitators and really just helping me learn, guiding all of us through this summer, and opening my eyes to the amazing world of civic engagement. I would love if we could give them a round of applause. Thank you. Through the amazing support of the Goldman Fellows program and the Gephardt Institute, I was able to spend this summer interning as a legal intern at the United States Attorney's Office of Eastern Missouri. As I have future aspirations to become a lawyer, I took this opportunity to ask as many questions as possible about what it is to be an attorney and why they chose it. The question I always asked was, why did you choose to be an assistant U.S. attorney, or AUSA? They were very consistent in answering that it was actually meaningful and purposeful. Many of them had served prior time in corporate settings and just explained it wasn't as impactful to what they saw the world to be. So, obviously, my next question was always, what's so different about working for the government? Well, they told me that it was about being a public servant, working to actually make a difference in your community and serving all those around you. Their goals changed from trying to promote profits or ensuring that a company was in regulation to trying to promote justice for their family, their friends, their children, their overall community. This had a really large impact on me because it really made me realize that I can mold my future career into something that works for my community. It essentially eroded away this idea that it's an either-or between community and career. This was an absolutely exhilarating realization to me by thinking about all the positive change that I could affect through law in particular. By getting this different perspective of civic engagement, I was then primed for the amazing education that the Goldman Fellows program gave to me. Through months of learning how to get involved in the community and getting a great chance to both explore and adventure around this great city, I was endowed and absolutely excited with the prospect of making positive change. The most important thing that I say that I'd learned this summer was that you must have a very deep, very intimate understanding of the community if you ever want to make positive change. I can firmly say that the Goldman Fellows program gave me an amazing base to start developing this understanding through readings, exercises, but most importantly, through hearing the stories of the people that call this place home. I don't think I can overstate the importance of listening to those who live in St. Louis and are constantly working to make this an amazing place to actually get an understanding of what it is to be here. Without their stories and testimonies, it's almost impossible to get an accurate understanding. I would go as far as to say that these stories and testimonies are the true driving force behind amazing programs like the Goldman Fellows Institute. With this being said, I am so grateful to my fellow fellows, Nicole and King Sung, the Gephardt Institute, the Goldman Fellows Program, WashU, and all the donors that made this possible to expose me to these amazing stories and really give me a base to begin my own story. Thank you so much.
One of the most important things for community engagement is giving it the time that it needs for each community to feel like they're really engaged. Having the consistency of a Gephardt Fellow allows us to plan and engage with the community in longer term.
Working with the Gephardt and working with Sophie, particularly our intern, allowed us to connect with all of the organizations that were a part of the Gephardt and create a more community-oriented space within a brand new facility and a brand new theater that opened just this past year.
Learning about art therapy and learning about trauma-informed practices have been like two of the biggest things that have kind of changed maybe like my worldview and how I see the people around me and my relationship to them.
The process of community engagement isn't a give or take. It's a process of feedback, of collaboration in order to bring each other up.
But honestly, the biggest impact that the collaboration had was really that we began to learn more about ourselves and have a kind of deeper awareness about the work that CAM can and really should do to be trauma aware and trauma sensitive.
During my time at the Gria Museum of Black History, I had the privilege of being involved in a variety of different programming. One of the first things I worked on was the Juneteenth art show and sale, in which we created a platform for local artists to showcase and donate their art, as well as heard from local poets, musicians, activists, and overall created an amazing program that could be viewed by the community.
Something really cool for me was realizing that all the skills that I've acquired over my 4 years actually meant something there, that okay, I'm getting a degree in studio art, I'm getting a degree in educational studies, what does that mean in the real world? And realizing okay, I'm writing and this matters and this can translate directly, concretely into summarizing plays or working on content transparencies.
It was really exciting to see the work that she brings from her research in studio art and in education to bring a completely different perspective to the theater world that we weren't used to experiencing. So she kind of got to come in and bring experience that was a little bit more out of the box, that helped us see our programming in new ways.
A lot of times I thought okay, I'm studying studio art, and I'm interested in education, maybe a museum educator role, working in an art museum, those were the kinds of things that I thought were possible. So the idea that arts is a lot more expansive than just this one subject to me, and that it can be live theater, that it can be community engagement, that was cool to realize that I'm capable of doing that.
So I'm really grateful for the chance to have worked with everybody on this great project, and really it feels like just the beginning.
If I could choose one word to describe this summer, it would be engaging.
The word that I would say encapsulates this experience would be regenerate.
Flexible.
The one word that really defines my community experience, my summer experience at the Shakespeare Festival would have to be the word context.
If I had to describe my summer experience in one word, it would be transformative.
Expansive.
Hello, everyone. My name is Colleen Avila, and I'm a junior studio art major from Frederick, Maryland. And this summer, I worked as an Arts of Civic Engagement Fellow, along with my peers Sophie, Enzo, and Cameron, who are all wonderful and interesting people who I'm so glad to be in community with. My internship at the Contemporary Art Museum St. Louis was incredible, and I'd like to thank everyone at CAM, especially my mentors Michelle December and Miriam Ruiz, for making my experience so supportive and so impactful. So in my time at CAM, I had the opportunity to do trauma-informed research, culminating in my own public workshop, which was called Reflection and Connection, in CAM's Learning and Engagement Studio. Through the research I did on what it means to be trauma-sensitive, I've gained knowledge that informs me every day in every space I enter into and every relationship I have with people. Really being trauma-informed at its core means being compassionate in your relationships with people. It means rather than asking what's wrong with you, we ask what happened to you. It asks, how can I recognize the ways in which everyone's behavior is a result of their experiences? And how can I make myself and the spaces I create feel empowering, transparent, and safe? This is a framework that all spaces need, whether it's art museums, doctors' offices, or living rooms. My workshop at CAM was not only an opportunity for me to share the information I learned with the public, which was primarily St. Louis educators, but also an opportunity for me to put into practice the trauma-sensitive practices I had learned about. The workshop was centered on the therapeutic art practice of mask making, which I used to facilitate discussion and reflection on our communal experience of pandemic, which has been an incredibly impactful experience for all of us, I'm sure. What I learned in my research was that being trauma-informed means prioritizing people and prioritizing experiences rather than information. So I wanted to give people a chance to feel solidarity with each other and really reflect and connect together on their experience of the pandemic while we were all social distancing and unable to really connect with each other. So for context, I serve as a peer counselor at WashU for a 24/7 hotline called Uncle Joe's. And prior to working at CAM, I knew that I had an aspiration to be a therapist in the future. And really this aspiration came from a fundamental belief that I want to spend my life dedicated to people and relationships and love and life. So when I was doing this workshop, I was really struck by the ways that my skills as a peer counselor could translate into facilitating an art education activity. So as I led the group through an exercise of looking at Yupik face masks, I recalled both the visual thinking strategies I had learned during a learning engagement lab earlier that summer, as well as the training I have as a peer counselor here at WashU. I was able to see people learning, connecting, being vulnerable, and being creative, and seeing the ways that people's personalities shone through in the mask they made was really incredible. So really putting this workshop together made it really obvious to me the ways that art, community, and mental health are intertwined. When we look at art, we see others and we see ourselves, and it allows for a real presence that's cathartic and transformative. With all the knowledge and experience I've gained from working at CAM, I'm excited to pursue a future in counseling which keeps art and community at the heart of it, and a future in my personal life which is hopefully filled with more understanding, more grace, and more care. Thank you to the Gephardt Institute, and thank you to Roseanne for this incredible opportunity which has meant so much to me. Thank you.
The Alzheimer's Association was thrilled to host the first cohort of Beuerlein Fellows this year in partnership with the Gephardt Institute. Together, we are working to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout our education and support programs, communication, marketing, and policy efforts. This is critically important as we know Black Americans and Latinos both experience higher rates of Alzheimer's disease. In this initial year, the Beuerlein Fellows, Mariah, Tina, Pat, and Hudson, helped us to identify what we were doing well in the areas of DE&I, but also where we could improve our efforts to be more inclusive and equitable.
We worked with the Alzheimer's Association. I worked mainly with concern and awareness, so I was reaching out to media organizations and also just finding different ways of telling people's stories.
A lot surprised me about the experience. Going in, I kind of imagined that I had this image of nonprofits that was kind of a little too romantic. It was kind of like this space where I just thought all of this great stuff happened and was kind of outside of society, whereas like by the end I really realized that everything is in society, and so it has societal issues within it, and so that aspect really surprised me. But I think it was a good surprise in the way that I kind of learned more about what path I want to take, and I also learned more about how to I guess navigate in spaces where it's not all rainbows and sunshine and daisies everywhere. You know, it's like you have to go through, do work and navigate through other people's biases and kind of go on different things. So it was really nice to kind of just have this experience in the real world.
I think one thing for sure is being so much more open about having conversations about race and power and privilege and oppression with my peers, with people that I think are also in higher positions of power over me. I think that was something that I always kind of felt iffy about. But I do think that this experience really helped show me that even supervisors and your mentors are willing to also learn from you and grow with you as well. They're not just there to only guide you, but it's very much a mutually beneficial relationship.
I've always been really passionate about media, the way that we frame people's stories. I feel like this has a huge impact in not only how we perceive people, but also how people, are treated. And that directly ties in with medicine. If we're empowering these narratives and telling these stories where patients aren't treated right and that they're not being listened to, and then, the doctor reads that, then change can actually be made. So I know I want to help make that happen now.
There were a lot of great experiences that came out of working with the association itself, but I think some of the most life-changing moments were the times where I was actually able to converse with my supervisor and the other Beuerlein Fellows. That was just a really transformative experience because they have just such insight and knowledge that I think I was really able to just think about. Like, I feel like I could just listen to them talk all day about the insights and perspectives that they have to offer. And I think like those conversations are ones that have stuck with me to this day, and I would like to think have really empowered me to be passionate about making change in the future for myself.
It just really put into perspective to me that wherever I go, whatever I end up doing in my life, to always make sure I'm doing something with the community, and especially if I am in a community that I was not a part of before.
If I could describe my experience in one word, it would be eye-opening.
It would be growth.
I think empowering.
Inspiring.
Hello, thank you for coming tonight. Hi, my name is Pat Wong. I am a sophomore studying global health, biology, and film. And this summer, I worked as a Concern and Awareness Fellow for the first Beuerlein Fellows program. And I worked with the Alzheimer's Association and the Gephardt Institute. Firstly, I'd like to recognize my other fellows, Tina Liu, Mariah Davis, and Hudson Hazelwood. You guys have been absolutely amazing. And you guys really were the highlight of my summer, and I could genuinely have not gotten through without you guys. And I also like to extend a huge thank you to the Alzheimer's Association, the Beuerleins, and also my mentors, Peggy, Will, and Jacob. Thank you for showing me the ropes of Alzheimer's and how complex it was, and for turning someone with no marketing experience into someone with a little bit more marketing experience. Now, I'd like to tell you guys a story that I feel really captures how this fellowship has a really great impact and also how this changed my own perspective. It all started when I was working with media outlets in Missouri and also Belleville, Illinois. And I was researching before the Alzheimer's Association International Conference, and I was seeing if they had covered diversity in clinical trials as well as transgender Alzheimer's patients' experience. And what I found was two things, one good and one bad. The bad thing, and this comes as no surprise, but that these topics were not covered, not nearly at all. I went through years and years of archives through tens and tens of media outlets, and I had not found a single article covering the diversity in clinical trials or transgender patient experiences. And I suppose the heaviness of these topics is something that might stave these outlets away. It is so important to talk about these, but it also is really difficult to. People don't want to read about how systems of oppression can lead to disparities, or how, or read about the Tuskegee syphilis experiment and realize how that continues to haunt participation in research studies today. The good thing, however, is that changes are on the horizon. Minority media outlets, TikTok and Instagram, have really arisen as a way for minority voices to be uplifted and empowered. And I feel like the Alzheimer's Association has really made a commitment to working with these minority media outlets. As Sarah mentioned in the video, the Alzheimer's Association has been super open to hearing our student suggestions, and that's been really important. I specifically remember my mentor, Jacob, and he said that it wasn't about the views. Let's stop thinking about the views. Let's start thinking about what suggestions we should have. It doesn't matter the viewer engagement. It just matters that we're getting to the people that need it the most. And I feel like this really shows a commitment to empowering voices that have been historically silenced and symbolically annihilated in media. And I think it's so important because we know the consequences of erasure. We see it manifest in the disparities, those numbers that we see all the time. And we also see this manifest in patient horror stories, medical and scientific discrimination. It's not just about recognizing that discrimination exists. That has never and will never be enough. It's about taking the steps to actively fight discrimination. And I feel like the Alzheimer's Association is making good progress towards that. And to have even been a small part in facilitating these connections between minority media outlets and the Alzheimer's Association has been a huge honor. And I'm so excited to see how this program will continue. And overall, this experience has really affirmed my own commitment to patient narratives and medical narratives in general. In the future, I definitely want to be including this mindset as I practice and pursue medicine and public health. I think that we should all be viewing patients not just as statistics, as numbers, but as individuals with stories and traumas that deserve to be heard. Lastly, I'd like to thank the Gephardt Institute and my mentors, Stephanie and Luis. You guys have really taught me how to think with the community in mind and really taught me how to be civically minded, and that has been a huge, really amazing, life-changing thing. And I now, I want to go towards an MPH to help pursue that. And now Roseanne Weiss will join us in introducing our special guest speaker.
Good evening. I'm Roseanne Weiss, lead educator for Arts of Civic Engagement. And it's so wonderful to witness the impactful work of all of our students and all of our community partners. I'm so grateful to be part of it, and thank you all very much. It's my pleasure to introduce another highlight for this evening. Shiraz Gorman is a poet, a storyteller, an activist, award-winning advertising copywriter, TED Talker, and St. Louis native. I'm also proud to say she's my friend. I can remember the joy of Shiraz stopping by my office at the Regional Arts Commission with a copy of her first collection of poetry, In the Myths of Loving. I can also remember Shiraz again stopping by my office, tired, in need of Wi-Fi, water, and a plug, coming with another demonstrator from the Mike Brown Uprising. I can also remember the sorrow of learning she lost her youngest brother, John, to gun violence. All that and much more led to Shiraz's commitment to her communities. Among her many roles, she is a member of the St. Louis Screwed Arts Collective, a founding committee member of the St. Louis Brick City Poetry Festival, and the founder and director of the Sibling Support Network an organization dedicated to supporting people who have lost siblings to violent crime. Please welcome Shiraz Gorman.
Greetings, everyone. Greetings, everyone. Yay, you all are humans. Yay, awesome. Actually, if everybody can do me a favor and stand up. If your body is physically able. And I just want you all to take a moment and scream and congratulate yourselves for being at this stopping point. Congratulations, congratulations, congratulations. So just scream as loud as you can. There we go. There we go. So I just want to thank Roseanne Weiss and Ms. Kurtzman from the Gephardt Institute for having me, and thank you all for participating in that exercise. So some of my earliest memories involve music, specifically reading liner notes from my favorite albums that were housed in my family's music collection. I would listen to songs and follow along with the words printed on the inside of the album sleeves, not realizing that what I was being introduced to was the art form of poetry. As a child, like in adulthood, I have a tendency to gravitate towards songs that are heavier in content. My go-to for this example is Stevie Wonder, one of the only musicians I know who can la you through heartbreak. And he does it in such a way that it just makes you groove. Hence the song Another Star off the album, off his 1976 album, Songs in the Key of Life. I personally maintain that Stevie Wonder is not celebrated enough for his songs that are socially conscious. Take, for instance, the song Jesus Children off the 1973 Intervisions album, where he sings, "Hello, Jesus, Jesus children, Jesus loves you, Jesus children. Hello, children, Jesus loves you of America. Are you hearing what you're saying? Are you feeling what you're praying? Are you hearing, praying, feeling what you say inside? You better tell your story fast, and if you lie, it will come to pass." The courage exhibited in these lyrics, along with many other songs of Mr. Wonder's catalog, not only made its way into my creative bloodstream, but impacted and continues to influence how I view the multiple ways and how I can be in service and of service to my community. Sometimes, saying what needs to be said with the song can galvanize the masses to ensure that a prolific leader like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., that his born day is recognized as a national holiday. And I also want to shout out Public Enemy as well, because it was in conjunction with Stevie Wonder and Public Enemy's song, By the Time I Get to Arizona, that actually also pushed states that were resistant to Martin Luther King's Day becoming a national holiday. So oftentimes, poetry and other forms of art, be it dance, photography, performance, painting, the art of living, gives us language to express how we feel and enlist those around us to engage in dialogue, to shift perspective, or to be open to new ways to look at new things. And with that being said, I would like to share a poem from my book that Roseanne, thank you for the plug, that Roseanne mentioned. This poem is titled, Who Moved My Memories? Who moved my memories? Put them in flames, hosed them down, separated what held them together. Sold them away to someone willing to pay a premium. Buried them underneath my feet. stuffed them somewhere I can't see, made them look like something I don't know. Who knows why folks want to erase things? I see whole neighborhoods blighted by some sort of entity. Had it ever thought to stop and think about how we might feel, or does it even know we exist? Maybe it knows and wants to act like we don't. Wrapped us up in some sort of derogatory subhuman ghetto myth. Maybe it's fine with our ghost, lost around this place we once remember, just trying to find home, not attempting to haunt anything. But we can't find what we recall, what feels like yesterday. Those places that made us smile and have our laughter, sorrow, happiness, histories, our histories, trapped somewhere in them. Where is this love I'm holding on to? Who moved it and why? Perhaps those government notes that instruct us on who to trust takes precedence over a history, a culture, a people, an ethic, over love and its preservation. Now, should I be mad? Because change is the natural order of things, and it was never promised to be palatable, easy to swallow like the first kiss I remember but can't feel no more. But it was real. Yes, it was real. Home is real. What is missing once was and still is real. Who knows why folks want to act like we are not? Who am I now without these memories but in my head, and even that gets foggy at times? Because now there's nothing to show for what I know, because I know what I know, but who else besides me knows that it was real, is real to me and to the people who lived, loved, yes, loved, laughed, worked, rested, watched each other's children cross the street, borrow a cup of sugar, knew family secrets, and could tell you when you got old enough to bear the truth. Cut your grass because they felt like it. Knew to check on you when the summers had a pinch of hell in it. The people, these people. What happened to the people in this place? Who stopped caring about the people? But I have eyes that see. I see the dividing lines. They aren't imaginary. I see what stands and what goes, what's abandoned and what's adorned, what opens up and what closes down, what gets watered and what we allow to rot. I feel the old history limping its way around. I hear its old thoughts sprouting out of new mouths, coded language decoded in the blink of an eye in ample silence. Where did it all come from? This old ghost with his wrecking ball of a way. Let me ask you something, ghost. What are you getting out of all this? Why are you laying everything to waste? Don't you know nothing new can replace what has been, because what was priceless? See, I got eyes that see ghost. I see what once was beautiful being just that, beautiful. But I see folks trying not to see. And it's all visible if they care to look. So take your blinders off, because it's all being seen. See the city, histories torn down, stolen from where they used to stand, sold like they, like we, like I, never mattered. Like we were somehow never precious enough. With our memories buried beneath. Somewhere in a city that appears not to see all histories as equal, tell me if I can't find something that looks like my memories, something that feels like home. How are we to move forward? Thank you. And thanks to Stevie Wonder, my poetry is medium. My medium is poetry. And this poem really reflects a lot of his work that he had written in the early 70s. We talk about gentrification now. We talk about police violence now, but these things are not new news. And I'm proud to be a part of that lineage. So I say to you all, whatever your medium, gently, allow it to carry the message you hold in and near your heart. Wear it on your sleeves. From page to stage, to street corners, to classrooms, and even to the boardroom. Wherever you find your feet planted, or your back straight, or not so straight. Deliver what needs to be said. Even if the vulnerability makes you want to escape your own skin, shed that part of you. Think. Just think of that skin as the desire to protect you. But you must not be afraid of evolving, transforming into something you have never imagined being. Case in point, I'm currently in seminary, on the path to receiving my Master's of Divinity. People who know me personally, I thought I had not been to church in so long that I would need an invitation from God themselves to have me step foot in seminary. But here I am. Stepping outside of myself for a moment, I can see logically how I ended up where I am today. And it has nothing to do with the fact that I was raised Roman Catholic or that my grandmother was one of the most liberal Southern Baptists. This woman poured me a drink of peach schnapps on the rocks as we watched Wheel of Fortune after I turned 18 years old. This was her way of welcoming me into womanhood. However, it may have a lot to do with the fact that I was raised in a home where service to others was foundational, organic, unspoken in its way. To this day, I do not know how to cook small meals because the standard set by my maternal grandmother that was that we needed to make enough food not only to feed ourselves, but to feed whomever needed a meal. When I think about it, it was no thing for me to wake up and see a person sleeping on the couch or an available chair in the house, someone from the neighborhood who needed a place to be. This was family tradition. My normal from an early age was situated in a village mentality. So as Roseanne mentioned, I founded Sibling Support Network after my youngest brother, John, was killed here in the city of St. Louis at the age of 27. And when that tragedy struck our family, August 14th of 2013, I had to shift. As I understood that the loss of my brother was not something just poignant for my family, it was not only hurtful to us, this rippled through our community. I saw his friends, neighbors, all in pain. That then catapulted me into creating the organization. Now, I do not recommend, nor do I advise that you have a tragedy that catapults you. This is my narrative, and this is my story, and this is my pathway. And I do not use that at this moment to say, let your pain be your guide, right? I think one of the most interesting things that people say to me is that you managed to take that and make something of it. And I just have to respond, by the grace of God, therefore I. Because when I think about how that fractured me, how that broke me, and all the resources that I had around me to ensure that I stayed intact, it's quite humbling to think about it, and I see people in my community who have not been as fortunate. So how I ended up in seminary. I actually reached out to Eaton Theological because this is also something I want to impart on you all as you all go on your journey. I had a breaking point. I had a limit. A young woman contacted me whose brother almost died in the same fashion under the same circumstances as my own brother. And I realized at that moment that I needed help, that I needed other people to stand in the gap for me. And I'm so thankful that I learned that lesson, because oftentimes when we engage in community work, I think some people forget that we are human too. That some things can hit a little close to home. And for myself personally, knocked me down for at least 2 weeks. So I reached out to a good friend of mine, my homeboy Corey Lovell, who was actually at Eaton Seminary. And I was like, man, I need chaplains. I need someone outside of me to hold this, to be another container. And he was like, hey, I'll put you in contact with the dean of students. Now, this is the interesting thing about when people meet you. Be prepared for people to Google you. Because when I entered that conversation with Dr. Sonia Williams, she flipped the script on me. She's like, I Googled you. Tell me more about your background in advertising. Tell me more about your background as a community professional, because I'm also a community health worker. And as I started to share, she then put before me some opportunities and said, hey, we have this master's program. Would you like to come to seminary? Once again, I'm thinking like I might need holy water and a priest and everything else to even admit me in. And I sat with myself. And I had to look back at my life. I had to realize that I was actually being prepared for the path long before it even made sense to me. Perhaps it has something to do with the fact that my godmother, Reverend Jessie Wise, was in my life. Perhaps it has something to do with the fact that my godfather, Otis Woodard, an activist from North St. Louis, was in my life. Perhaps it had something to do with the fact that when tragedy struck our community, people enlisted me to come and do the vigil and say the prayer. Meanwhile, there were other people who were ordained, who I felt was most qualified to do it. The community called on me. So I say that to say sometimes you will have to look at your life and to ask yourself, have I been getting prepared for this the entire time? And I also want to ask yourself, what is stopping you from stepping into your light? If you find yourself in resistance to the call that has been placed upon you, and I'm actually going to break script right now, because something that I've been inspired by this evening, watching each of you all stand up here, I see young people who are brilliant, who have big hearts, who have aspirations in seeing something different for this world. And what I would like to impart upon you at this moment, don't allow that to be tainted. Don't allow someone else's limitations and what they see for the world shift you, change you. Remember who you are at your core. Because as you go through these shifts and dips of life, who you are here, what you feel here, what you know to be true here, is what you will have to live with. And the last thing that I would like to see for you is for you to continue building a world that is already on fractured foundation. We need you all. And I would like for you all to keep the same passion, the same vigor, and most importantly, the curiosity. Look at all the different possibilities that are out there. I mean, you all's generation is coming up with a lexicon and a knowledge base that I wasn't even able to touch until I was in college. Some of you all probably have been engaging with the term intersectionality when you were in middle school, which is a complete and true blessing to be able to have that as a foundation. So stay true to you. Stay true to what you believe is possible. Because all we have in this life is imagination. And the one true thing that we all must endure is change. So here's looking at you all. Thank you.
One could say I have a rough spot to come after Shiraz Gorman. For those of you who are watching from home or elsewhere, there was just a rousing standing ovation. And Shiraz, thank you. There's so many things I could say. I was going to share a logistical announcement that the recording of the event will be available. We can all watch this again, but I know I'm going to be watching it again, so I can write some things down and soak in your wisdom a second time. Thank you so much. Let's give Shiraz another round of applause. I have just a few small remarks before we get to food and art and some snacks and some good company. I really want to thank everyone who was involved in putting together this event, most centrally Roseanne Weiss, who led the way. And a team of people who collaborated on both the event and our summer programs. I sure hope I don't miss anybody. I want to recognize Nicole Murphy, Stephanie Whedon-Smith, Louise Albano-Hurley, Nick Zevley, Shannon Burt-Kransberg, all of whom are on our team and have made all of this possible. And if I've forgotten someone, please let me know. Thanks to our student speakers tonight, to our community partners, again, not only for being here tonight and not only for partnering with us through the summer and through these very transformative programs, but for what you do in and with and for the St. Louis community every day. I want to thank our donors once again, and special thanks to COCA for enabling us to host this event here tonight. Let's give it up to COCA. I do hope that all of you, regardless of what brought you here tonight, again, in person or virtually, come away with something for yourself to chew on. For me, we think a lot at the Gephardt Institute about this concept of civic engagement and this concept of civic leadership, and our goal is to be expansive in how we think about that. And I was sitting there listening to Shiraz and thinking, students, civic leadership isn't always out there in Washington, D.C., right? The leader of the pack. You saw civic leadership in Shiraz Gorman, and she called all of us to action to think about what is our medium. So I hope that each of us, regardless of where we are in our own journeys, are thinking about that for ourselves. Housekeeping, we will have a recording of this very special event. And secondly, if you are one of our summer fellows or a community partner who worked with us this summer, if you can first, before you go that away, come here so we can take some photos with you before we get to the good company and the food and drink. For everyone who's gathered here in this space, we invite you at the conclusion of the event to gather just across the hall in Millstone Gallery for our reception, where we'll have food, drinks, art, and of course, good company. Congratulations once again, and thank you to our Summer 2021 Arts of Civic Engagement Resident Fellows, Beuerlein Fellows, and Goldman Fellows. Thank you all for being here.